Yo, people, Fahir here from awesometoots.com. And we saw that in order to access these functions, so for example, public void attack, to access this public float health variable and public string player name, we need to create an object. We either need to do player, so we need to type player p is equal to new player like this, and then we need to see type actually, so p.health in order to access the health variable, or we need to go in our Unity editor and we do need to create an empty game object, which is going to be our player, and we are going to attach the wizard script on him. We need to use a component, so private wizard, and I'm going to call it W. And now we need to say W is equal to game object.find, and we are going to find the player game object, get component, wizard, and all of this we saw in the previous video. And now we can say here we.health or W.health because it is inheriting that from the player class. But what I want to talk about, which is also one of the important concepts because we are going to use that in our course, is something called a static variable. What is a static variable? A static variable is also known as the class variable. So here in the player class, we have the health and we have the player name, which we can access in the wizard. Let's just assume that we also have player name and health in the wizard, but we actually have because we're inheriting from the player. But in order to access player name and player health, we need to get a reference to the wizard class or script by using game object find and get component, and then we can access it. But a static variable is this. So if I say here public static and let's say int power is equal to 100. So in order to access this variable, we don't need to create an object. We don't need to type private wizard W and then it's equal to game object find, and then we are pointing to this reference and then we can access it. We don't need to do this. We can simply delete all of this right here. And as I said, a static variable is also known as a class variable. That means we can use the class name dot the variable name in order to access this variable. Let's check it out. So instead of me typing wizard is equal to new wizard or getting it as a component, I can simply say wizard.power, and this is it. Wizard.power. Wizard is the name of the class, this one right here. Power is the name of the variable, which is static. So in order for this to work, the variable needs to be marked as static. And I can go here and I can say debug.log, and I can say the power is plus wizard power, and we set the power to be what? 100. Are we gonna see that being printed in the console? Let's check it out. So I am here in the scene, I'm gonna hit run, and we see the power is 100. And if I double tap it, it's pointing to this right here. So what is going on? Well, it is going on that we are accessing a static variable and we don't need an object. We don't need an object reference. We don't need to create an object. We don't need to use get component in order for us to access a static variable. So this is a static variable, and that's all there is to it. And we can also declare other variables as static. We can declare integers, strings, booleans, even objects. So we can even declare objects to be static, which we will see later on in our course. But the point is that we use the class name, then we use this right here. So the name of the variable, which is power, but it needs to be marked as static. And then we can simply, use class name dot variable name, and we access that variable. Now, one other thing here is also that we can have static functions. So I can go here and I can say public static void, and I can say wizard info like this, and I can debug.log. So I can say debug.log and I can print something here. This is called from the wizard, so wizard class. And notice again, we don't need get component. We don't need wizard W is equal to new wizard in order to access a static function. Instead of that, again, I'm going to comment this out. I'm simply going to use wizard.wizardinfo, and I am going to call same as if I am calling this function from an object. But this is not an object, this is actually the class itself, because a static variable is a class variable. So a static function is also a class function, meaning we simply use class name dot and the name of the function in order to call it. If I go back here in Unity and I hit run, notice what is going to happen. This is called from the wizard class. So again, this is going to be very useful for us when we, start our game development, which we will see later on in the course. One important thing to know when working with static variables and functions is that if we try to use this, so here in debug.log, I am going to say the power is, and I'm going to say plus power, which is my power variable. So this power is actually this power variable right here. And I can go back in Unity, hit the run button, and we're going to see the power is 100. Everything is cool. But if I remove this static, so if I remove the static from the int power declaration, so this variable is not static anymore, it is a regular variable, notice what is going to happen. Going back here, bam, an error. An object reference is required to access non-static member wizard power. What does that mean? It means that in a static functions, the variables that we use from this class, they also need to be static. So if the variable is not static, we cannot use it. As you can see here, I'm using the power is plus power, and this variable is not static, then we cannot use it in a static function. Of course, if the function is not static, then we can use it. But in a static function, the variable that we use also needs to be static. So that is the rule. If I go back here, now that I fixed it, the error is gonna go away. So you can use also variables, but remember that the variables also need to be static. And again, briefly so in order to call a static variable or a static function, we only need the class name. We don't need an object pointing to some reference in memory. We don't need to do that. We don't need to use getComponent to get the component from the game object. In order to use its script, no, that is not required. We only need to type the name of the class, dot the name of the function, or the name of the variable as we just saw. So you can either use dot wizard.power or wizard.wizardinfo or other names of variables or functions that you declare. And this is the difference between a regular variable and a static variable. So for a regular variable, such as our player name and player health, we need to create an object from our wizard class, or we need to use getComponent, and after that we can access our player name and player health. But for the power, simply type wizard.power, and for the function, function name. Fahe here from awesometudes.com. This was about variables, and catch you guys in the next one.